We'll go ahead and call the meeting to order, and we welcome the guests that are here with us tonight. And at this time, April will give us the pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now, David's going to do our invocation.
Most kind and gracious Heavenly Father, as we come before Thee this day, we're indeed grateful for things that we have, our food, our clothing, our shelter. Please help us to be courteous of the words we speak. Help us to be slow to speak and quick to hear. Help us to only say uplifting, encouraging words that will help and never tear down. Help us to protect our hearts and only allow inspiring words to leave our mouths. This is our prayer in Jesus' name. Amen.
At this time, I recommend that we have a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting.
Make that motion.
Scotty, do I have a second? April? All in favor? Any nays? At this time, Mr. Burt Hankins made a point to be with us tonight to go over our only estimate that we received so far on the cleanup for the Munsonware facility. And I'm going to be talking about this a little later about what we need to do. We only got one.
Yes, ma'am. I'm glad to be here. I almost feel like I need to introduce myself. It's been a while since I've been here. I was telling Shay I used to be the engineer here, and I guess I still am the engineer supervisor for here. He3's been doing a good job with you guys, and he doesn't let me come much, but I'm glad to have the opportunity to be here tonight and talk a little bit. As the mayor said, we did do an asbestos survey of the Munsonware, the old Munsonware building. It showed some asbestos in place, and we sent out requests for proposals to 3 asbestos removal contractors, and ended up getting one back. He sort of qualified his proposal a little bit. The base proposal is like $35,000 for removal of everything and disposal of everything. He did put a caveat in for $28,000 if we left the mastic under the floor tile, the stuff that sticks, the glue that sticks the floor tile down. If it stayed in place, he'd deduct $7,000. But that's not a real good thing to do, depending upon what you decide to do with the building. If the building's going to be renovated, it really ought to come up. If the building's going to be demolished, it really needs to come up, because if you leave the mastic on the concrete, then the concrete has to be disposed of in a sanitary, in a approved landfill. If the mastic comes off, then the concrete can just be used wherever you want to use it. So the proposal really ought to be, in our mind, for $35,000 to completely remove and dispose of all the asbestos and asbestos-related materials in the Munsonware building. That'll leave it ready, as I said, to either renovate or demolish, whichever one you guys decide to do. My personal opinion is the main part of the building, the 2-story part of the building, is a nice building. And it seems a shame to demolish it, but I'm sure y'all know best. One thing y'all keep in mind, though, if we demolish it, we're going to be left with a pretty big hole there, because the thing has a basement underneath about half of that 2-story part. That will be, it'll be a pretty big hole. I don't think we could fill it all up with the rubble from the building, so there would be that to consider if you decide to demolish it.
Bert, and this doesn't include, this report does not include any of the outside in the oil ponds. And it was explained to me that we have to do well testing in order to know if we've got a problem with that and explain that.
Well, yes, ma'am, there's been a lot of testing done over the years with the outside of that site. It has monitoring wells in place now that for years were monitored by ADM when it was in production. In order to clear the site environmentally, ADM has a program that's called, they have a name for it, but it's a program where you register the site with ADM, you go through a process of testing to show whether there's anything on there or not, and if it works out so that there's nothing there, or something there that can be remediated, then all the liability with the site goes away. ADM doesn't take the liability, but they, because you've gone through that program with them, the liability kind of goes away. If you don't go through that program, even if you clean the site up, that liability kind of always follows the site, kind of always stays there. So there is a process we need to go through to get that building on that program. If I'm not mistaken, the last time we looked at it, the proposal, the testing and the engineering required to do that was, I think, around $25,000 to get the site clear as far as environmental stuff is concerned. That's by far the best thing to do because the liability just goes away.
So we're looking at a total of $35, $25, $60,000 total about.
I think that would get the site pretty well cleared environmentally. Assuming there were no big problems, and we really don't think there are any big problems with the site because of all the monitoring that went on for so long. And the monitoring was mostly not so much for dangerous chemicals as it was for color. Those guys use so much bleach and color and dye that it's bad for that stuff to get into groundwater. But there was the last reports I saw, there was not any contamination in the ground.
Are you saying there's a lingering effect of that color burn, or, I mean,
Once it gets in the ground, it has a tendency to kind of just stay there.
I see.
But it hadn't, I'm sorry, I got a cold that's trying to hold on a little bit, but the last reports that I remember, none of that dye had shown up in the groundwater. So chances are it's probably not in there. And those ponds were, if you remember, those ponds that were in the back were lined with vinyl lined for years. Now, there may have been some years before that they were not lined, but at least for a long time they were lined to keep that contamination out of the groundwater.
That lining is still in there.
Yes, sir. That's right, it is.
Anybody else got any questions for Bert about this? Council members?
Don't you think that we need to decide what we're gonna do with it before we go into some of this right here, what you say?
You might want to do that. There would be, if in the case you decided to tear the building down and use the land for something else, that environmental clearance would need to be done in that case. If you're going to renovate the building and do something with it, then that environmental clearance needs to be done in that case. So really, if it's just going to sit there, then you don't need to do nothing. But
That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
If you don't do nothing with it, but you need to decide what you're gonna do with it first.
Either way, it's gotta be cleaned up.
Cleaned up,
at some point in time, it needs to be cleaned up,
regardless of what you do.
regardless of what you do.
That's personally.
Unless you just, as David said, let it sit there for another 20 to 30 years.
Environmentally, obviously it's gotta be cleaned up first. But as far as renovating the two-story structure, the office part may be kaput, who knows, but the two-story structure, how difficult would it be to rehabilitate that for something in the future?
that would sort of depend totally upon what it was renovated for, but it's a stout structure. It's structurally sound. It's got big steel in it, big masonry in it. It's a structurally sound building that could be used for lots of things, but as far as the cost could just vary dramatically depending upon what you decide to do with it.
You make it as expensive as you want to, or as inexpensive, depending on what you're gonna use it for.
Yeah, if it was gonna be a warehouse, it wouldn't cost much. You just clean it out and gut it. If it was gonna be a manufacturing facility, then it'd be a lot more to do.
And we're not really concerned with the lead paint, are we?
That's
not
a good
gonna be
point.
an
I'm glad
issue.
you
Yeah.
mentioned that. The lead paint, there is some lead paint. Our guys didn't think there was enough of it to be concerned. It's painted on some of the block wall. And what they do, two things. If you're gonna renovate the building, if you cover it, then it's no danger to anybody with other paint or whatever. If you're gonna demolish the building, the lead paint on the block wall is considered a part of the block wall, and it's such a small percentage of the total mass of the block wall that it doesn't make it a hazardous substance. So they do a little test, and would have to do some more. It's just a little simple little test they do if they were to start tearing it down, just to make sure that those percentages will work out right. But they don't expect to have any
What's
problems.
that test called, T?
I had it written down. It's a T something,
I-
T-clip.
I
T-clip.
believe I was told by the guy that did this, that he did the T-clip test.
He did a T-clip.
Okay.
He did. He probably didn't do, you kind of have to do one per so much area if you're tearing it down. So there may be a few more that would need to be done, but yes, he did a T-clip
Okay.
to see what percentage that paint was of the total mass of the wall.
We talked about a multi-purpose building of some sort. If we could get the county and maybe some of the other cities to go in with us, we might be able to renovate it, but this is a lot of money just to get it clean. Maybe it's something you gotta know what you're gonna use it for.
It is.
And that, I think, would be a pretty good idea, if you could do it that way.
Could you do it in phases? I keep hearing people say, well, maybe you could do it in phases. And I don't know.
It's more expensive.
You-
He said the RDOK's doing, did he say it would be quite
In the
expensive?
long term, it would be more expensive. It would just depend on how you can phase those things in. But it has some really tall space in there, and that's, multi-purpose would be good for that. It could do a lot of things in a big tall space. Keep in mind though that the roof is an issue also.
The entire roof is an issue, isn't it, Nate?
Well, on the west side of that thing, the roof is just about falling in.
It is.
On the taller side, it's still feasible to fix it.
I agree with you. The west side has some actual holes all the way
Yeah,
through.
I mean, it rains it.
Am I right that the office area, and I can just see it from the outside, the office area pretty much would have to go, pretty much. It looks, I mean, that's not the stable part of that building.
The last time I looked at that, the roof and everything else was falling in. And the windows, of course, vandalism has got in there, and
That's a
Pull
big
that place
problem
up.
right there, is vandalism.
Yes, sir, you're right. The roof on that part of the building is a wood structure, and it's gotten wet, and it's in pretty sad shape on the office part of the structure.
Well, we're glad to have you with us
Thank you.
tonight.
I'm
Good to
glad-
see you
glad to be
again,
here.
and
Good to see you.
we'll see you soon, I guess.
Thank you. I'll take off and go hunt some peas and cornbread.
Thank you so much. We appreciate the report. Item number 3 on the agenda is a recommendation to approve Keel Roofing Company's quote of $6,029 to replace a new roof on the Hamilton Sullins house. We met up there with the Historical Society one afternoon late, and they had a builder there that was looking to replace some boards on the building, and preparing it to paint it. And the builder said, you've got some hail damage. And so came back and talked to Jan, and she called the insurance company, and they sent an adjuster out. So they're going to, they've already sent us a check for all but the deductible amount. So I recommend that we go ahead and approve the replacing the new roof, and the historical, not the Historical Society, but the Hamilton Southern's account has sufficient funds in it to pay the deductible, and I believe that's what they agreed to do. Jan, is that correct? So if someone would make the motion.
I'll make the motion.
All right, Ms. Francis, and need a second. Paul, all in favor? Any nays? Okay. Ayes have it. Recommendation for immediate consideration of ordinance number 201210 to set a municipal option election for August 28, 2012 for the city of Hamilton to determine the sentiment of the people as to whether or not alcoholic beverages can be legally sold or distributed in the city of Hamilton. Without reading the ordinance, the entire ordinance, what it's allowed is a vote to be held, and we must allow that vote to be held because there was petitions that went around, and we had over 30% of the voters that voted in the last election, general election, to sign that petition. Those names have been verified as registered voters, and the act requires that the city, on the receipt of the petition of 30% of the number of voters in the last preceding general election of the municipality being filed with the city clerk, the city council must call a municipal option election for said municipality to determine the sentiments of the people as to whether or not alcoholic beverages can be legally sold or distributed in the city. So, do I have a motion for immediate consideration of that ordinance number 201210?
And this will be on the ballot on the August 28th.
Right. Yes, sir.
I'll make the motion.
All right, McDavid, do I have a second? April, all in favor? Any nays? The ayes have it. At this time, I recommend that we approve the ordinance number 201210. Do I have a motion? Francis, do I have a second?
I'll say.
McDavid, all in favor? All in favor? None opposed? I want to recognize our Marion County EMA Coordinator, Jimmy Mills, for his recent award presented to him on June 14, 2012, from the state of Alabama, EMA Director Art Faulkner. And on the award, this was inscribed: for your outstanding leadership during one of the deadliest tornado outbreaks in Alabama's history, April 27, 2010. Your dedication to the citizens of Marion County exemplifies what it means to be an emergency management professional. We are so happy to have someone like Jimmy Mills serve in our community. Thank you, Jimmy. At this time, I'd like to recognize all of our employees here. We just recently had a bad storm. I was out of town, but I heard about it. And our street department, our police department, our fire department, everybody was out there doing what they could do. And I really appreciate it. That means a lot to me to know I was gone, but you just took it up and did what you needed to do. And I want you to know tonight that I really appreciate it, and I feel like this entire council appreciates it.
We had a lot of positive, remarks from the community regarding the input that the city had taken care of things.
The city did have, go ahead.
Can I say something? I guess the people that are most visible to the news sometimes get recognized a lot. The administrative staff here, Shay, Jan, Amy, they get bombarded with phone calls, people wanting information. They do a lot of work too.
That's right.
Sometimes they get left out because they're maybe.
They're included, and I congratulations
This is
for
right
what
on
they
board.
did, I really appreciate it.
Back several months ago, I believe it may have been 5 or 6, we purchased a graveler truck that will pick up debris. If anybody has any debris, they need to call in. Of course, that truck is being used now, right now, since Monday night. And it makes it a lot easier, and it can be done a lot quicker.
Makes it dish work.
We did have some damage to our city property. We had damage at the rec center, and I've been talking to Larry today, and he's getting estimates on the cost. He had some light poles down, and also, I believe, a dugout that was damaged. So we'll be turning that in on our insurance. Ricky's really getting bombarded with us here lately. I do want to say that we've announced this before, but I get complaints about signs on the right of way. And recently, the signs have been advertising car sales, car lots. And there's an ordinance against that. We do not allow those signs on the city right of way. We're trying to keep our city clean. And I've instructed the street department to pick these up again, and they'll take the signs down to their shop and keep them for a few days. So if they belong to you and you want to pick up your signs, go to the shop and pick them up. If we see these same signs out there in the next few days, you may be fined, because we can't just continue to pick up signs over and over and over for the same people, and you going right back out there and doing it again. Just want to put you on notice. Farmers Market, they're going to have a big open house this Thursday from 3 to 6. They're going to have free tomato sandwiches. They're going to have live music. And they invite everybody to come out and have a tomato sandwich and listen to the music. And I love to go to the farmer's market. I like to look at those fresh vegetables and take me some home.
That's Thursday?
That's Thursday from 3 till 6. And we've got a sales tax holiday coming up July the 6th, starting at 12:01 a.m. and ending at 12 o'clock p.m. on July the 8th. And that is for you to buy your storm items that you might need in case we have a power outage or something. So remember that, if you have something you need to buy to restock, then you will not have to pay any sales tax at that time.
Is it that day? How long did you say?
It's July the 6th from 12:01 a.m. to July the 8th at 12 o'clock p.m. Is that right, Jan? Any of the council have any comments?
No.
Appreciate you. Appreciate all of you being here. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?